Welcome into Eye on Northeast Kansas, the podcast where we recap some of the top interviews from our Red Couch show, Eye on Northeast Kansas. I'm Melissa Bruner, your host. I come to you Monday through Friday live, 4 o'clock Central Time on WIBW.com and our WIBW News mobile app. We had a fun week in the studio at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We have so many great community events going on around the area. Of course, that's the bread and butter on Eye on Northeast Kansas, your community show. So if you're able to watch the stream, I encourage you to do so. Some very important topics discussed this week as well. First among them, it is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And all April long, once a week, we are going to devote some time on Eye on Northeast Kansas to draw attention to this very important issue and various aspects that are going on in the community. We also want you to know that resources are there. People are available to help if this is something that affects you or someone you love. We got the discussions going with Michelle McCormick. She is the executive director of the Kansas Coalition Against Sexual and Domestic Violence. They're working with us on this project. And we extended an invitation and he said, yes, I will be there. Tony Mattivi, our director of the Kansas Bureau of Investigation. There is a history that the KBI has had in really bringing sexual assault investigations back to the forefront. We had a great discussion with Michelle and Tony on this topic. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Both of you fairly new in these specific roles, but certainly no stranger to the topic. And Michelle, when we talk about raising awareness of sexual assault, how widespread is the problem and the issue?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks for having us on. It's important, I think, for folks to know that it's much more prevalent than probably they realize. The CDC tells us that about 50% of women and 1 in 3 men experience sexual violence in their lifetime. And so it's something that happens so much more regularly than I think we talk about openly in our society.
And what exactly is the definition that you use when you talk about it? Because there's one statistic too, if you extrapolate the definition to include sexual harassment, numbers are over 80% for women.
Absolutely, and you know, it really does depend sort of on, you can have a much more nuanced conversation, but I would include sexual harassment, any sort of physical sexual assault. Of course, we look at some of the criminal definitions, rape, and some of those crimes, child sexual abuse. And so when you put all of those categories together, then definitely those numbers can change, those data points can change.
So it affects a lot of people, but why aren't people talking about it more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's a very difficult topic for folks to speak on. I think there's still a lot of stigma and shame when folks experience victimization. And quite frankly, we need to do a lot more work about how we have traditionally blamed the victims for this particular crime instead of having an offender focus.
And the KBI has been involved in this issue, Tony, for several years. There's some history here, and the first had to do with evidence that's collected as part of these investigations. What did the KBI do several years ago to kind of get things up to speed and really put this as a front burner issue?
Melissa, thanks. Join Michelle. Thanks for having us on. I think this is such an important topic, and we're really glad that you're raising awareness. In 2014, the Kansas Bureau of Investigation realized that we were having the same problem that a lot of law enforcement agencies across the country were having, which was there were hundreds, if not thousands, of sexual assault kits that were sitting untested in forensic science laboratories around the state. So KBI was able to obtain a grant from the U.S. Department of Justice to assemble the resources needed to collect and examine all of those cases and eliminate the backlog of sexual assault kits that were sitting untested on shelves.
Which is really a big step, because when we talk about not wanting to come forward and not wanting to talk about it, if your evidence is just going to sit there anyway and the case isn't going to go forward, why would you come forward and
huge
talk about it? So that morphed into what we have now, which is an effort to raise awareness and address a lot of sub-issues. What's happening now?
So I think so this predates my history at the KBI, right? But the folks who were in place at the time realized that testing the kits and the law enforcement aspect are just one aspect of the greater problem. And so I think they did a wonderful job of partnering and collaborating with a very broad group of victim-based, trauma-informed agencies to come up with an approach to deal with sexual assault awareness in general. And I think that's where Michelle comes in.
We have a big committee now, don't we, Michelle?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're really trying to take what was, I think, success that folks can be proud of from that initial project and sort of hope to build momentum so that collaboration continues and we can continue looking at how do we keep emphasizing better training for the response professionals, but also how do we help the greater public understand this issue better, because their understanding is really key to how we eliminate this issue. And so, yeah, we've got a lot of work to build upon, but still more work to do, of course.
And I don't even understand all of it, and I have full disclosure, I'm one of the subcommittees is the Education and Awareness Subcommittee. I am a part of that, so I appreciate the invitation to join in that. Why is it important to have the support of agencies like the KBI as you do your work with the coalition?
Oh, absolutely. Having the support of the KBI and law enforcement and prosecutors and all of the other disciplines, healthcare providers, child advocacy centers, having that collaborative approach really is what creates the strongest and most effective response to this. Certainly victim advocates play an important role as well, but we've been trying to solve this issue for many years, and we quite frankly need others in these other disciplines to support our work, and all of us come together in order to create the most effective response.
And that is the flip side. When you have advocates in your corner and working together, how does that help the work of law enforcement? Anytime
I think one of the big problems with sexual assault is that it is so underreported, right? We talked earlier about the stigma that's attached. You add that on top of the fact that being a victim is never an easy thing. So from law enforcement's perspective, if we don't know about it, if it's not reported to us, there's nothing we can do to investigate, there's nothing we can do to prosecute. So we really need the help of these other agencies to raise awareness so we can decrease the stigma and increase the reporting of this crime.
Wearing teal is one way we can raise awareness this month, and we want folks to know that if this is something that affects you or someone you love, there is a 24/7 Kansas Crisis Hotline. 1-888-END-ABUSE is the number. Also, the Kansas Coalition Against Sexual and Domestic Violence is there if you need other resources, kcsdv.org. All of this information will be on WIBW.com. We're going to be visiting with Michelle and others involved in this topic in the weeks ahead. Thank you to both of you for being here and starting the conversation.
Thanks, Melissa.
Appreciate it. And we will continue the conversation every Tuesday at 4 o'clock Central Time on Eye on Northeast Kansas during the month of April. The next 3 weeks devoting some attention to the issue of sexual assault awareness, a very wide-ranging issue. And we really look forward to shedding some light and shining a light on some of these topics. Also this week, the City of Topeka continued discussions surrounding the issue of homelessness. City Manager Steve Wade and the Strategic Initiatives Director for the city, Kristin Moorhead, joined us on Eye on Northeast Kansas. This was ahead of a special session that the city had planned involving dozens of organizations that currently offer services to people who are homeless or work on various issues surrounding the topic of homelessness, such as mental health awareness and mental health support and treatment. We had this discussion with the city manager and with Kristin Moorhead ahead of that meeting to talk about this whole process and what's going to happen and unfold around the city from here. And let's start with that topic of just homelessness in general. What is the city facing, Steve? What have we heard about it? And so what is the next step the city's decided to take?
So right now we know it's a growing problem. And we have a summit coming up on Wednesday with about 40 different agencies that are coming together. There's about 60 in the city that touch homelessness in one fashion or another. So 40 of them are going to come together on Wednesday. As a city, we're going to listen and try to figure out exactly where there might be some gaps so that we can figure out what the role of government is to plug into this. From that, we'll select a group of about 12 individuals to engage with this consultant that we've talked about in the past. That'll happen about May 1st. And then you'll see some work that will take place really through the rest of this year, trying to make a dent in what's going on.
And the whole process is where you come in, Kristin. Yes. What is your approach to this going to be, and why does it really start with that summit that's taking place?
Yes, so we know that there's so many agencies that are currently working or, what their efforts do touch homelessness or the unsheltered population. So we really want to gather them together. We've sent out over 60 invitations to private, public, nonprofit, faith-based organizations to really, as Steve said, to listen and to hear where there could be gaps.
What are you hoping to learn from the summit?
I'm hoping to see the different areas and the different organizations and what areas they work in, and then see whether or not there are some gaps that we can come in as a city and identify and work towards.
And you'll be working with a consultant, is that correct?
Yes.
What is the importance of bringing in someone with maybe a little bit of an outside view to kind of help us get a handle and a look at the big picture here?
Yes, Steve has actually worked with this consultant before.
Yeah, so really we're looking for a neutral third party. There's a lot of smart people coming into this room and a lot of passionate people trying to deal with a very people-based issue. And so if you bring somebody in that's neutral, that can have some good conversations, really we think that the exchange of ideas will be very neutral and be very productive.
Why do you feel like the strategic approach, that's part of your title, is the way to go when it comes to this?
So can you elaborate on your question?
Well, I mean, I know there's a human portion to this, and there are a lot of people who are doing a lot of good things.
Yes.
But why is that not always necessarily, I don't want to say the best thing, but not necessarily the best thing when everybody's kind of off doing their own thing?
I think collaboration is where the strategic part comes in. If everyone's doing their own thing, it's sometimes hard to see where we can come in and have that innovation that we talked about. And so it's really purposeful to kind of gather us all together, all of the voices in the room, to see if maybe we can think outside the box and think for innovation.
And then as Steve said, after the summit, it doesn't end there. There are several more steps already lined up.
Correct.
That's right.
Very good. Appreciate you guys talking about that. And
bet.
before we go, we have a moment that we want to have you touch, Steve, on road construction season
Oh,
is starting around the capital city and around the entire area. So what can we expect in Topeka?
Lots of cones.
Yeah.
About $5 million worth of work right now on repairing roads here in the city. You know, I guess one request we would have is be kind, be respectful. We don't want to get anybody hurt. But we also see when cones come up that people start taking detours that maybe aren't the approved detour route. And so you start getting frustrated. Cone season is the time for everybody to have a little bit of patience and take your time getting through them.
And you said the city's asphalt supplier, that plant is going to start to get fired up here soon, so we're going to start to see the road crews out there doing work.
Yep, we should see something here in the next couple weeks.
What are the main projects this year, the main areas of the city we'll see?
Boy, Melissa, they're all over the city.
Yeah.
We're literally touching every neighborhood in the city.
And we're seeing those road projects and street projects fire up. By the way, that summit on homelessness drew more than 60 community organizations. They're now going to take a smaller group, as he mentioned, and formulate discussions and a plan. And we should be seeing something coming up in the weeks and months that furthers this discussion on the issue of homelessness in the capital city. This is National Public Health Week. And what is public health? Well, I'll tell you, I had a great experience last week. The Kansas Department of Health and Environment held the annual Governor's Public Health Conference. And I was invited as part of that to facilitate a discussion with pediatrician Dr. Mona Hanna-Atisha. She is a pediatrician from Flint, Michigan, and she played a key role in getting attention drawn to the Flint, Michigan water crisis when lead was found in the water at dangerous levels and children's health was at risk. She was one of the keynote presenters. She wanted to do it in a Q&A format. They asked if I'd be able to facilitate that. Absolutely fascinating discussion. But as I was visiting with some of the KDHE personnel, they said, you know, next week's Public Health Week, it'd be great if we could let people know what we do. So we checked the schedule and we had time to invite them onto the red couch. The local public health program manager, Cristi Cain, was there with Deputy Secretary for Public Health, Ashley Goss, and they visited Ion Northeast Kansas to explain a bit about their work and what they do for all of us. Ashley, public health, the concept itself, what does it even mean?
The concept itself, the way I like to explain it is it's what's going on behind the scenes quietly every day, all day, 7 days a week, 365. We're looking out on how we can protect our community and our population.
And this isn't something that just came up when the COVID pandemic. It's not just about viruses. What other sorts of things do you deal with?
Right. Definitely not just about viruses. Pandemic is something we do not want to repeat anytime soon. So we work on preparedness. So getting people prepared for severe weather and how to keep their family prepared and have things in place if that were to happen. On the health department, with the health departments, having them know what to do if, say, there's a tornado. Health departments a lot of times will provide tetanus vaccines to communities that have been devastated by a tornado. Same with if there's flooding. Immunizations, of course, is something else that we do. School physicals can be healthy physicals. We do referrals also as well for different sorts of things. It depends. I like to say out of all of the health departments in Kansas, if you've seen one, you've seen one. They all do things catered to their communities.
And Cristi, that's kind of where you come in. You work with the local health programs. What sorts of programs have you been helping administer across the state? And I guess I'm thinking in part of the local health rankings that came out county by county, and it dealt with things like smoking prevention, diabetes, obesity, maternal health, and babies. I mean, what sorts of things are you working with counties on?
Right. So as Ashley mentioned, counties work on a variety of things tailored to their counties, and my program supports the 100 local health departments that serve all 105 counties across the state. And so just a range, like Ashley mentioned, the preparedness aspect is one, but just there's a huge breadth from addressing things like food insecurity, transportation issues, like access to care. So it's a really broad range of services that communities provide that we're helping them implement in their communities.
How much demand do you see for some of those services and programs?
So, I mean, I would say that sometimes the community may not know that they need it yet, if that makes sense. And so public health is really kind of the umbrella over health, big picture public health. And so, like, whereas a physician helps one person and diagnoses one disease, public health is looking at, okay, why are these people all getting the same disease in the same area, things like that. And so we're looking at, so why are people in this zip code dying 20 years earlier than the people in the zip code right next door, which is happening in our country. And so really bringing a community together to address whatever their issues are. I was just listening to a podcast today where the Surgeon General was talking about how loneliness is a public health epidemic. So everything from gun violence can be a public health issue in many communities. So it's really tailoring it. So what is going on in that community that's impacting the public health, and then pulling together the right partners and people to address it. So partnerships are huge in public health, and I see public health as they're kind of the health strategist, where they bring together the partners. They don't do all the work themselves, but they bring the community together to make sure the work happens.
And we can debate pros and cons of what came out of the pandemic and how people felt about certain policies or processes and procedures. But on the plus side, Ashley, what did we learn from the pandemic that maybe has improved some of those relationships between local and state and community partners?
Those are some of the positives that came out of the pandemic. So we have learned how to partner in unique ways. So, I mean, many of us had to learn how to partner via Zoom and in figuring that out, and problem solving with community members, different times of day, but community partners that maybe we hadn't seen before or heard from. At the state level, meeting with new sister agencies or even new partners of coming together to develop a plan and learning that everyone just kind of leaves where they're from at the table, and we're all there to serve one purpose, which is how to make our state safer and get through that.
Good lessons in communications for moving forward now and addressing some of these other issues now that we can kind of move on from COVID?
Absolutely. I think there's great lessons that we learned in communication. It's all positive, all positive.
You can learn more about some of those state public health programs and public health initiatives at kdhe.ks.gov. You might not have realized that Library Giving Day was held this week as well. Our local libraries are so important, and even as they have changed and adapted over the years, there are so many resources that you can find at your local public library. In Topeka, the Topeka and Shawnee County Public Library in and of itself is a taxing entity. There is part of a portion of sales tax that we pay to support the library. So for all of those extras, we have the Library Foundation. If you want to support your public library, that is where the Library Foundation comes in. Ashley Sherrist is the executive director of the Topeka and Shawnee County Public Library Foundation, and she explained a bit about their role and what it is that they add to the local public library. I want to ask you, first of all, about the work of the foundation, because a lot of people know the library is there, but then there's this foundation thing.
Yep.
What is this foundation thing? What do you do? What is your role?
Yep. So best way to describe it is, so library is a taxable entity, right? That's how they raise their money. The Library Foundation is there to raise funds for things, extra things. Think of it as like the icing on the cake, right? So the foundation is also the ability for people to give money to the library through the foundation. So whether that's in their estate, or if they just have a an influx of cash and they want to make a donation, the foundation is there to assist the library in that transaction.
When you talk about the programs that the foundation supports, what are some of those examples of things that the foundation really makes possible?
Yeah, some things I think people would be most aware of would first of all be the Alice C. Sabatini Gallery. We actually have a fantastic exhibit in there right now in regards to baseball. I know I'm not a sports person, but it is a phenomenal exhibit.
It's really the backstory of the Negro Leagues.
Absolutely, yes.
In art form.
And a perfect timing because baseball season just started too, so people can go check that out. Bookmobiles, that's how a lot of people know us. So we have bookmobiles, adventure mobiles, our Learn and Play bus. Those have all been supported through funds that the foundation has either raised or through sponsorships from other organizations in town.
Dolly Parton Imagination Library.
Absolutely. If you have a kid 0 to 5 and you want them to get a book completely free until they are 5 years old, the library supports that initiative with United Way of Caw Valley. So another great program that we work on. People also might remember Claire's Courtyard. That came about officially about 1.5 years ago. It's a fantastic space at the library that was only made possible through donations from the Swagger family and of course naming it after Glenn, naming it after his wife Claire. So great space that wouldn't be possible without gifts and the library foundation.
Because the taxing entity is meant to keep the doors open and the lights on and the heat on, not necessarily all these
the programming and all
frills.
these wonderful things, but the icing is what we want to take care of.
And tomorrow is your day of giving, and why you want people, particularly tomorrow, what do you want them to do?
Yes, I need them to go online. They can go to the public library site and click on foundation, or they can go to foundation.tscpl.org. A box will pop up and you can make your donation right there. $5, $50, $5,000, whatever you want to make. We will take those funds and utilize them to support programming and fun things at the library.
And even after tomorrow, here's your little 20-second pitch. Why is the library and why are these programs important?
Well, I think everyone can remember going to the library and what it feels like to walk in, right, to get that book. But libraries are so much more than books now too. And I think that's as we're moving forward, past the 21st century into the 21st century, libraries are doing so many things. If you haven't been to the library, I would say even in the past 3 years, you need to walk through the doors again because it's a completely different space.
Get online and you'll get a taste of it as well. But tomorrow's Day of Giving, foundation.tscpl.org. If you are able to, please go ahead and give, or just go to the library. Check out volunteer opportunities too. That's always a way to give back.
Absolutely.
Thank you so very much for being here, Ashley.
Thank you.
I love reading. I love books. I'm a big fan of the digital services that our Topeka and Shawnee County Public Library offers. So really getting kids interested in reading and all those programs that our library does. And they're going through actually a community reevaluation process right now to see what folks want from their local library. So participate in that process, and it'll be fun to see the library evolve in the years to come to continue to meet those services. We had a fun segment this week that focused on Topeka's history as a softball hotbed. We were known nationally for this back in the day. So there is a reunion that's being planned for Saturday, April 8th at Washburn University, and also leading into their softball game, them being honored. So by the time you hear this, that event itself might be over. But I wanted you to hear this conversation because it was just so fun. They were inviting back softball players anytime from the 30s through the 70s to be part of this event. It's arranged by Brian Bonsack. He said it really was inspired by his mom, who was one of those softball players. And then we also invited Washburn University's current softball coach, Brenda Holliday, on to talk about this because it involved her and her mom as well. I love hearing these stories about how people have been inspired and motivated over the years. And this was just one of those conversations that really touched that chord. You're part of this history, Brenda. How did you get your start in softball?
Yeah, well, my mom played during that time down in Topeka, 7-Up, I think, or OC Meets or something, and I was a young girl and got to come down and be a part of that, and that was really my introduction to the world of softball.
And how did it grow for you from there?
Right, I mean, high schools didn't have didn't have softball at that time, and so from there I played, went on to Highland Community College to play basketball actually, and they started a softball team that first year and wanted other athletes to be a part of it and try out, and so I did, and eventually ended up at Kansas State to play softball, and kind of a full circle moment.
Now here you are, coaching
Here I am.
Washburn University in Topeka. Brian, what have you kind of cooked up? Because your mom was part of this softball history as well.
Yeah. So my idea simply was just to give a league of their own celebration for the players of this era. There are a lot of great teams, a lot of great players in that time frame. It's been quite a long time since a lot of them have been able to get together. I mean, my mom's 86, and the COVID, she hasn't been able to get out with a lot of her friends. So lo and behold, I called Coach Holliday out of the blue and suggested it, and she's been supportive. I called last year about this time, and she's been supportive of it since day one. So we're going to try and get folks together this weekend. With me, I grew up with my mom. My mom's still alive, but if your mom isn't alive, come to the celebration and learn, maybe see some of the players that you've heard about.
If you played or a loved one played.
Yeah.
They were serious. You brought some of the old stuff with you there.
So my mom played for OC Meats. She also played for Ed Marlins at one point
And that was their jersey?
That was the jersey at the
Nice.
time. And they actually had these nice kind of like letter jackets. In the back it says, you can see that. And on the front, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a nice little patch.
Kansas softball champs were in 1949.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
So it's just hopefully going to be a fun celebration with folks getting together, reconnecting, and like I said, at least for me, I don't know the actual names of a lot of these players. I just know them by their nicknames: Scooter, Digger, Frenchie, and I don't know about you if you're the same coach, but I can't invite them otherwise because I don't know their given names. So thank you for having us on.
So if you're Scooter or Digger, come on out to the fun. How proud of you are your mom for her part in this history?
Oh, I love it. I love my mom. That's why we're doing it. So.
And Brenda, for you, what did this activity mean for your mom and for you?
Right. I mean, I don't know if my mom knows about it. She's probably watching today, but she's always at the game, so she'll get to be a part of it. But really, for us, it's Washburn softball. It's a chance to honor and recognize the people that came before us. I mean, we walk on their shoulders for everything we've done for softball in the city, Northeast Kansas area, for all the women that came before us and loved to compete, and they had nothing when they competed except each other in the game. And to be able to bring them out to our field and honor and recognize them is something we're really looking forward to, and I think it'll be a great experience for our players as well.
Honoring and recognizing and learning the stories of those who came before us. That really is what it's all about. And we recognize the role that all of those who came before us played in our own lives and touching our own lives today. Thanks for listening in on Eye on Northeast Kansas, the podcast this week. Remember, you can see the video from these segments and all the segments, all of our guests on Eye on Northeast Kansas every day on our live stream, 4 o'clock Central Time on WIBW.com and our WIBW News mobile app. I also post them on WIBW.com as well. And check it out. They are on my Facebook page, WIBW Melissa Bruner, so you can see them there also. Hope you enjoyed listening. Hope you have another great, fantastic week ahead, and we'll see you on the Red Couch.